Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Emergency video this evening because roster changes are officially hitting the timeline. Los Angeles Thieves have fully confirmed what they are up to, dropping a couple of players, getting a couple of players now into their starting lineup, but also the Boston Breach, a team that was considered before the start of the season to be maybe the 5th best team on paper. That did not pan out in reality. Is Asim potentially the man to take them back to where the talent on that team arguably implies they should be? Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. First of all, how about this? This is apparently a, well, season pack that's arriving Call of Duty League related. I don't know if this is meant to be Chef Tony precisely, right, which is, as we can see right here, but I did hear during the major there are some really exciting possibilities in terms of CDL team packs coming very soon indeed. You guys might remember actually the Doug Sensor Martin one, which wasn't officially Doug Sensor Martin, it was like the guy in the sleeveless jersey, whatever he was wearing, tank top or something, and he was jacked out of his mind. Basically looked like Doug, but it wasn't quite called Doug or anything. It basically was based on Doug. Apparently that was like one of the best selling, if not the best selling skins, and it's just great when the Call of Duty League stuff are like the best skins, because that gets everyone excited, more people buy them, we'll be like, okay, what's the CDL thing? Maybe even in the game itself there's like some menu you can go to actually see the matches. It's just good stuff all around, and I've heard rumours that there are some really cool stuff being cooked up right here, right now, in terms of CDL in-game team skins, which I think is always a good sign, so hopefully that continues somewhere. But let's dive into this Rostermania stuff, because Thieves, as they said a couple of days ago now, only time will tell in terms of confirming their roster, and it really starts here with FaZe Black. So FaZe Black, the best challenger team, where, let's be honest, most of the talent was going to get poached from. They just won the Boston Major 1 challenger side to really nobody's surprise. So Asim is gone, Kremp is gone. Now, Kremp has been confirmed. As of recording, Asim has not been confirmed, but we pretty much know anyway, so we'll discuss that in a couple of minutes. Brack, though, is to stay, which I'm somewhat surprised by. I think Exceed is good, but I think just given the circumstances, the way that that team was designed and structured and everything, Exceed was probably the least attractive candidate in terms of joining these rosters right now. Brack, I think, I'm surprised he isn't going anywhere, especially to a team like Vegas. We can discuss that over the coming minutes as well. I thought that might have made sense, but seemingly for now, that is not necessarily quite the case. And as FaZe Black confirm, Geo is coming in, as we talked about earlier today, but so is JoeDeceives. So JoeDeceives now benched by the Los Angeles Thieves, that's confirmed. He will now go to the FaZe Black team, which is a pretty damn good destination to be fair, and actually Thieves confirmed this is a substitute spot. So I think this is a good move from Thieves. I mentioned this when we talked about the Thieves move, that, look, between Afro and Joe, I think you can go either way. I made my opinion known that I would keep Afro. That's what Thieves have decided to do, but I definitely agree that it's not so clear-cut as far as I'm concerned, and keeping Joe on the bench to put pressure on Afro, I think is a good idea. And Joe as well, he had a decent season last year on Gorillas. He's had a mixed start to this season, I would say. There's an argument that a bit more time for JoeDeceives in challenges, especially with great players to hone his craft a little bit more. I think he can still be a talent in the league, and I think it's too early to, say that he's not going to be what Thieves need him to be. But for now, does Joe have the ceiling that Afro has? No, and in my opinion, ceiling is what matters in terms of forming these rosters right now, because, who doesn't want to try and make a championship Sunday when the top of the league is as stacked as they are? So I think that's what they're going for, but keeping Joe on the bench, I think it's a good move. Puts the pressure on Afro to actually deliver, because he'll need to, and if he doesn't, JoeDeceives could come back in. They could try that option. We know what Thieves did back in Cold War, where they made every single roster change under the sun, and it was kind of funny, right, because Cold War, they made every single change possible. None of them really worked out for them, right? I think the one that actually kind of screwed them was when they got Hook, because they actually signed Hook from Dallas when he was dropped, thinking it was a great move, which kind of was in a way, but they actually looked quite good before that with TJ, but then they changed the roster around, and it all kind of went downhill. And then for the last couple of years, Vanguard Modern Warfare 2, they've stuck it out with their team. Sure, during Vanguard, they made the role change with Kenny and Drazah. They brought in Shane, so that obviously helped them, but they stuck it out. They won the World Championship, looked dominant, and the next year they stuck it out as well, and it actually worked out for them, can you believe, right? Because no other team had ever won an event after winning the World Championship, so yeah, fair play to Thieves. However, this season, they might need to be somewhat more in between, right? I don't think they can make a change every week, as they were doing a couple of years ago, but I think no changes would also not be a wise idea, especially when you're 1 in 12 in hardpoint, and let's be honest, honest, something had to give. So Joe says, ready to run this up, back in challenges. Hopefully it works out for him. And then they confirm shortly afterwards, Cammy is gone. But this is not Cammy to the bench. This is Cammy is out of there, out of the Los Angeles Thieves. And it's unfortunate, right? I think that Cammy, Afro coming over from Rocket last season, there were questions about this. This was like the main, I like Cammy, right? But it was the main question I had going into this season was, is Cammy going to perform? Cold War Cammy, all this type of stuff. Is he going to be back to form again? My feeling was it's unlikely, and it's turned out to be, well, it turned out to have not happened, has it? Ghosty's been better so far. He also is the main communicator, really, on the roster, theoretically at least, and the Hill Kitten, or whatever you want to say, which is again true by the numbers. Ghosty's been getting more time so far this season than Cammy has, so I think it makes sense. Unfortunately for Cammy, it's probably going to be his first time as well, like not being on a starting team. I feel like Cammy's been on a starting team for pretty much the entire season for the last 4 years of the CDL. Now that's not going to be the case. Can Cammy still be a good player elsewhere? I still think so. I still think he's got the potential in there. I don't know if he just needs to go down to challenges a little bit and grind it out and find his groove again somewhat on a different team because, you know, as Nameless says, still thinks Cammy has some potential. I like to think so. But I do think that it probably is the right time for Thieves and for the league in general to say, all right, Cammy, it's time to step down to challenges, prove your worth again, and then we can think about bringing him back up to a roster at some point. So Cammy's out of there. As Shane says, one of my favourite players that I've worked with, gutted it didn't work out. All the best because, yeah, frankly, hasn't quite been good enough, and there are better options on the market right now, such as the man we shall see here in a second. Even their GM says, thanks to Cammy, you know, pleasure working with you. You brought a lot to the team, but it wasn't going to work, so it's time to go. Cammy even says this as well. I have to, like, unfortunately, I have to blur this because if you put this word, which you guys know what the word is at this point, it's Cammy's favourite word. If you put this on YouTube, they just demonetize your videos straight away. So I have to blur it out, unfortunately. But this is what he says. Thanks for the opportunity from Thieves. Shame I couldn't have done more with it this time. Appreciate those who supported me, and to everyone else, you know, sensitivity training for challenges is potentially coming kind of soon. I will mention though that Cammy has been spotted in challenges with the Boston Breach Academy. This is actually really interesting, I've got to say. These are some of the scrims going down here. You see Cammy on the other side with JurNii, Yeez, and Penta, which is actually a really nice team. Like, since Doug has gone and retired, that opens the door to Cammy to join these guys, and that's a really great potential proving ground, especially when we'll discuss Boston here in a second. But there are questions about, well, if this whole Capsidal Asim thing, which is apparently going to happen, doesn't really move the needle, maybe the next man to consider is probably Priestahh to be gone. I don't think Slash is going to be going anywhere personally. And if Priestahh is maybe not performing in the slaying category or whatever, then is Cammy an option for Boston, especially if he's going to be on their academy team? Just one to think about. And, well, the first map of the screenshot I saw, Cammy's 32 and 22. So who knows, maybe the Cammy redemption arc is officially starting today. But the Cammy replacement is, of course, going to be nasty. I don't know why he wasn't in the league at the start of the season. To be perfectly honest, I think Thieves should have done this anyway. I think arguably they should have just not even signed Cammy and just got nasty at the start of the year. Phenomenal player in London. I'm really excited to see what he can do outside of London because I think Thieves, they've got some decent talent over there. I actually think this team almost say it's got to get better with these changes. I think there's really no other way that I can see this going. And he was a great player for London. Probably a player when he's on form can be like a top 5 flex player in the game. I think he can be top 5 flex, top 20 player in the CDL, something along those lines. And if Thieves can get that out of him, as well, potentially we'll see if they do this season, then that's kind of as good as you're going to get, right? People are saying, oh, Thieves, like, these roster changes don't really move the needle or whatever. It's like, what do you want them to do? Sign Simp, aBeZy, and Cell? Like, it ain't happening, right? You got to find somebody out there, and this is why Nasty and Afro and these guys they've signed make sense because, look, even if you don't get the best out of them, it's worth a try because if you do, they can at least be somewhat contending with some of those top guys, which you're just not going to sign with the budgets that Thieves have and the fact that these guys are locked in. So Thieves confirmed it, Nasty to the team. Very excited to see him back in business here, actually, working with Shane and these guys. Also back with Afro. Like, Afro and Nasty was an incredible 1-2 punch combo at the start of Vanguard. So we'll see if they can deliver something similar here for Modern Warfare 3 going forwards. And actually, we see that from Afro in the replies, kind of well, throwing it up here with Nasty. So, nice duo. Hopefully it works out for these boys. Tough to imagine this team doesn't improve, but I've also got to mention this. So, Kremp is the other man to join as well. I don't know if I actually mentioned the Thieves streak, but we saw Kremp joining the other day. Kremp is in. JoeDeceives is out. Of course, Kremp from the Challengers FaZe back roster as well. And then Nasty is in for Cammy. Now, you guys probably remember this clip that I mentioned on stream, or from Kenny's stream, a little while ago now, where he said that Kremp is never getting back into the league. And basically just called him terrible and everything. And he was shooting his body, so whatever. Bit of a reaction there from from Kenny. But it's pretty funny, right? Because I said at the time, my feeling was that Kremp was more likely than not to get back into the league. He's basically been the first man picked back up. He was on Boston briefly last year. Now he's on Thieves again. And actually, OpTic versus Thieves is played. It's actually the first match, and Kenny replies this. I thought it was pretty funny. And this match, OpTic versus LA Thieves, is first weekend back. So February the 18th, for some reason there's a 2-week break, whatever, teams have time to consolidate roster changes and learn the new spawns. I guess it's okay, but that game happens, first game back pretty much of the season. So very exciting stuff, because sure, on paper you think, all right, OpTic will handle business, but you know, it's OpTic versus Thieves, it's Kenny's former team. The guy that he trash talked and said wouldn't be in the league is now on the team that he was formerly on, and it's like a pretty good rivalry anyway. Nadeshot versus like Scump and all that type of stuff is pretty juicy, and it's an online game, and Kremp will want to prove something, but Kenny will have to do the same. I'm sure we'll discuss that more in the coming days, but let's talk about Boston to close out the video then, because this was the big talking point really. What would Boston do? Would they decide to make a move? Snoopy, by the numbers, was probably their best player, definitely had some moments where he costed a little bit. Slasher wasn't good online, but they played one series on LAN and he could not get any help to save his life. Like, he was hard carrying and it wasn't to be, and Slasher's always going to turn up on LAN. I think like that's just a tale as old as time. But Zed said, coach of Boston, just after the tournament was over, that as far as he was aware, they weren't making any moves. And I said at the time, I'm not so sure that I'm convinced by this, just because of how things tend to go, and sometimes the coaches say something and sometimes something else becomes the reality. At the end of the day, they went to the home tournament and they got slammed out top 12 by a Surge team, which is probably also making a change, as we talked about earlier on today. And we now see the story today that Capsidal is gone. Lots of talk as to exactly what Capsidal needs to work on. I still think a player that has some talent, but frankly, that SMG duo wasn't really working, and I'm somewhat surprised that Dens, who obviously GMO for there, have just dropped him, like not even benched. I thought they might bench him, but I guess, you know, they've got their academy team. Those are the guys they're going to look for going forwards, now that especially Doug's retired. So Cappy's just gone, you know, like he's not even on the bench or anything, just straight drop from the team. So if it doesn't work out, I guess they could get him back. It's not the end of the world, but yeah, not benching him or anything. Capsidal is out of there. I definitely think probably the right move. I do like Capsidal, but I think that he does make a lot of mistakes in game. So does Snoopy, right? But Snoopy's very new to the league, and I think has more upside in the longer term. And I also feel like Snoopy, just like his personality, his character, really receptive, seems like a really hard worker, seems like he really wants to win and become as good as he can be. Maybe, yeah, I'm not saying you don't get the same vibes from Capsidal, but I think Snoopy's a kid that Boston really believe in. Capsidal, not necessarily to the same extent, and, you know, he just says, need a team for challenges, let me know. So didn't maybe have anything quite lined up. I mean, Cammy just walked into the Boston Academy. Capsidal has not done the same, right? So yeah, unfortunate for him, wishing him the best, of course, going forwards. But the replacement appears to be Asim. This is the rumour. I mean, he's left FaZe Black. That's now been confirmed. As of recording, he's not been confirmed to join Boston, but I imagine that is probably coming relatively soon, because yeah, Asim to Boston, it actually makes quite a lot of sense. The funny thing that I often find is that Asim, when he plays well in challenges, as he has been, people say, oh, Asim is so good, man, get this guy in the league ASAP. And then as soon as he joins the team, people say, oh, this guy's terrible, like he's going to draw 0.7 every series. And look, there is always the concern with Asim that as the season progresses, as it usually does, Asim doesn't maintain his performances at the start of the year, and I wouldn't be surprised if that trend continues. But still, is Asim a good option for Boston? I would say pretty much absolutely. Snoopy, if you can get the best out of him, especially with a good SMG duo, can be, I think, a heavy performer in terms of slaying, but also just huge impact. Asim could do a solid job as well. Sure, it's probably not going to be a crazy, heavily slaying SMG duo, but, you know, maybe on paper, neither is CleanX and Envoy, but they still make it work very well because of what's going on with the rest of the team. And obviously they do still slay very well in their own rights, but I like this move as well just because Asim's played with a Slasher before. They won a championship together on Los Angeles Guerrillas, can you believe it? A couple of years ago in Call of Duty Vanguard Major 2 in Minnesota. So Slasher has some experience with Asim. He knows what Asim's going to bring to the table. They clearly believe that Asim, if this does happen, is the man to try and get the best out of Snoopy as well, and I like the move. Sure, in the medium to longer term, there are questions about whether Asim is the right man for the job, but right now, of all the options available, I think Asim makes the most sense by some margin, and, you know, Slasher and Priestahh don't have to think about dealing with two SMGs going rogue, and maybe Asim will make some mistakes. I mean, he has been known to, but at least, you know, he's more mature, he's played for several years, he understands how to play the game, and they can just focus their full attention on getting the best out of Snoopy, which is probably what they want to do. But as I say, in the medium term, short to medium term, if this team doesn't, I think they'll improve. If they don't improve substantially, then maybe, you know, Priestahh, Cammy, is at least something to think about as a near-term option as well. Just quickly on Vegas, apparently they're going to stick together. I don't don't know if this is going to change or whether Vegas have literally run out of money and therefore just simply cannot afford anything anymore. But this may change. But for now, they've been spotted staying as the same team. So I don't know what's going on with Purge or what sort of dirt he has on these boys. Maybe that's an unfair way to characterize it. But, you know, definitely intriguing. So hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care of yourselves. And I will see you next time.